Mbrëm në ambientet e rezidencës së ambasadores së Shteteve të Bashkuara në Malë të Zi, Judy Reisenrankin u mbajt festimi 4 Korrikut, ditës së pavarësisë së Shteteve të Bashkuara të Amerikës. Ky festim vjen 246 vite pas shpalljes së pavarësisë së Shteteve të Bashkuara, e cila u ratifikua në Kongresin e dytë kontinental me 4 korrik 1777. Kongresi kontinental deklaroi se 13 kolonitë nuk ishin më subjekt i monarkisë angleze, mbretit George III, por tani ishin shtete të pavarura dhe të lira. Kongresi votoi aprovimin e pavarësisë me datën 2 korrik dhe miratoi deklaratën e pavarësisë pas 2 ditësh, me datë 4 korrik. Pas pritjes së të ftuarve, vazhdoi dhe programi i festimit dhe fjalimi i ambasadores së Shteteve të Bashkuara të Amerikës në Malë të Zi, Judy Reisenrankin.
Oj svijetla majska zoro, oj svijetla majska zoro, majko nasza crna goro, majko nasza crna goro. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave?
Dobro večer svima. Premijeru Abazoviću, predsjednice Skupštine Đurović, ministri, ekscelencije, dragi gosti i prijatelji, dobrodošli u moj dom. Hvala vam što ste došli na večeranji događaj. Velika mi je privilegija da obilježim 246. godišnjicu nezavisnosti SAD-a sa vama i imati čast da proslavim svoj 4. po redu 4. jul ovdje u Crnoj Gori. If any of you have been in the United States on July 4th, you know that Americans are particularly passionate about this holiday. On this day, we're not celebrating American nationality, but we're celebrating a homeland of freedom based on cherished, shared ideals. I point to the French aristocrat and American Revolutionary War hero, Marquis de Lafayette, who wrote in 1780, "Humanity has won the battle. Liberty now has a country." I'm so proud. If this very same sentiment, I think, is shared between Americans and the people of Montenegro, who are united in our love of freedom. Freedom, among other shared values, including a strong belief in democracy, binds our two countries together. I reflected on our shared abiding love for freedom 2 years ago. We were unable to host an event for Independence Day in 2020 due to COVID. My husband and I decided to mark July 4th by traveling to some of the less visited areas of Montenegro. One memorable stop was at the memorial, the spomenik, to Sava Kovačević in Grahovo. We watched experts from the Ministry of Culture carefully restoring the memorial to 270 local partisans in preparation for Montenegro's own Statehood Day observance. And we learned about their courageous fight against long odds against Axis forces during World War II. We were invited by local residents to share a rakia as they proudly watched the restoration effort. And I felt it was a fitting way to celebrate our shared fight for freedom. And it's a reminder that the United States and Montenegro stand together today against evil and in defense of freedom. The brave men and women of Ukraine who are fighting for freedom, even as we speak, remind us that freedom often comes at a very high price. I hope we are all outraged by what we see, the heart-wrenching images day in and day out of murdered Ukrainians. These are ordinary people, mothers and fathers and children who were going about their daily lives until Vladimir Putin decided to launch a war against them. And we honor their sacrifices, and we recognize their selfless bravery for protecting our shared freedoms. This region certainly knows the real costs of war, as well as the pain and losses that the 1990s have had and are still felt today. Now, recently, I will say I've seen a promising change in narrative. Discussions are turning away from the old battles of divisiveness and the self-defeating identity politics towards a more constructive shared struggle for a shared future. I'm encouraged by these debates that are increasingly taking place in the halls of democratic institutions, and that the constructive participation includes all political parties and voices as well as civil society. This sense of unity and the common purpose is apparent to me, and it was apparent when I met with Ukrainian refugees in Bielopolya and Bar. I assure you, the individuals were clearly suffering, but I was moved to see how the Montenegrin communities truly welcomed them. And that is in part because the people of the Balkans know better than just about anyone the suffering refugees endure when they are forced from their homes, when they have to leave behind their possessions, their daily lives, and their loved ones. I did see that true empathy and generosity and the welcoming spirit of the Montenegrin people during those visits. And I'll tell you, friends, this is what the Balkans is about. This is what the Balkans should be. Because I believe the term Balkans, which has suffered from an association with fragmentation and divisiveness and division, even in the English term, balkanization, it means broken apart. It's a reflector of the troubled past. I think it's time to rebrand the Balkans as a word that means multicultural, a word that means pluralism, and a word that means generosity of spirit. Montenegro and her neighbors will all benefit from such a rebranding and a repositioning. I think this region can work together as a stable, prosperous, multicultural Western Balkans, and that's a vision for the future. Now, in the United States, it was hard-working, talented immigrants, many of whom were fleeing from religious and political persecution, that helped to build my country. And they built it into a prosperous, vibrant democracy. We realized very early on that diversity brought great strength to our country. What all those immigrants had in common, what did they have in common? It was a shared love of freedom. Indeed, the inscription on the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty, which is our most enduring monument to freedom, reminds us of our multiculturalism with an invitation that said, "Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." Like the United States, Montenegro has a proud tradition of multicultural welcoming and coexistence, as well as a strong Euro-Atlantic orientation. But there's work to do, as we know, to secure this country's endless potential, including addressing difficult issues, entrenched corruption, and weakened Montenegro's economy, and the societal divisions that have hollowed out democratic institutions. These are challenges, and you're addressing them today. And what we've seen over the past 2 years is what some would call the beautiful chaos of democracy, which is at times is kind of frustrating and messy, but we're reminded that government is truly only legitimate when it is accountable and reflective of the will of the people. As Americans, and I will admit, Americans work to reinvigorate and renew our democracy at home. It's something that has to happen here. And I'm privileged to watch Montenegro's democracy bloom during my time in your country. It's my deep hope that the current government and all governments that follow it, every one of them, will do much to make sure that EU membership is a reality. We'll help people build trust in democratic institutions and will bring a greater level of prosperity to every single citizen of this country. And I assure you, the United States will continue to support you in this work as Montenegro makes progress along the Euro-Atlantic path, on its way to claiming its rightful place as a full-fledged member of the European community. So thank you, once again, for joining us today to mark my country's independence. Our two countries are united in our shared love of freedom and our undying commitment to democracy. And friends, that's a reason to celebrate. Now and always, the United States is proud to stand with the people of Montenegro as a friend, as a partner, and a proud NATO ally. Hvala vam puno.
Prijatelji, partneri I novo saveznici, hajde da nastavimo da slavimo naše prijateljstvo u budućim godinama. Srećan 4. jul, happy 4th of July. Živjeli!